Good morning and welcome back to Late Start Show. We are here with middle school science teacher, head of the house at Shaker Campus, and middle school soccer coach, Mr. Bo Montanye. How are you, Mr. Montanye?
I'm doing great today, guys. Thanks for having me. I'm like really excited.
No,
Of
it's great
course,
to have you
thanks
on
for
the
making
show.
the trip up from the Shaker campus. So we always start at the beginning with our guests. What were you like as a kid, and were you always into science growing up?
Yeah, so in short, as a kid, I was weird, and I still am. I'm really big into sports, really big into science. The big thing is I just like to kind of know everything. I've always wanted to know everything, and every time I try to figure something out, it then leads me to like 30 more questions. And that eventually met one day I just had a teacher go, You're a scientist. You realize this, right? And it's just like, no, I just want to know everything. They're like, yeah, that's the point.
Yeah.
Moving kind of into your teenage years, where did you go to high school and what was Mr. Montanye like as a high school student? Were you kind of like, as more in high school, were you more focused in science? Did you play sports and kind of what sports were they more specifically?
Yeah, so I'm not from the state of Ohio. I'm from where New York, Massachusetts, and Vermont come together. I came from a sleepy little town called Stephentown that has a population density of 52 people per square mile. I'm pretty sure there's more than 52 people around the corner here right now. So going into high school, I'm huge into sports. I was a three-sport athlete every year. I could be. I played basketball since I was probably 5 years old. Picked up soccer a little bit. My main sport was lacrosse. But really, what it was is I just want, again, like I once said, I want to know everything. I was a mathlete in high school. Like I went to MIT for math competitions.
Wow.
I was captain of my lacrosse team for 3 straight years, captain of the basketball team for 2 years, captain of the soccer team for 2 years. And really, it was what can I learn? What can I do? What can I be weird about this time? The problem is, as you guys are aware, I have no shame. So I was also the math prefect. I was the science prefect. I was just a random person who was trying to get people involved in everything at a day student at a boarding school. It was really weird.
And having just that small amount of people at your school, did that build a sense of community for you?
It did. Community is huge. So the school I went to was based on Shaker values, which, if you guys don't know Shakers, I mean, Shaker Heights, right? It's Shaking Quakers, and they're all about community. You've probably heard the song Simple Gifts at some time in your life. I had to sing it every single week for 4 years, and it was the worst moments of my life. But community is a huge thing, and getting up, my graduating class was the largest one. It had 35 kids in it. There was 100 kids in the school, grades 9 to 12. So realistically, you knew everybody, your teachers knew everybody. Like I said, it was a boarding school, so I knew where every teacher lived, and it was within a 5-minute walk of where I was currently taking class.
After high school, you went to Colgate University, which obviously
The best.
yeah, going from kind of this class at 35 to a larger, like to a college that has obviously a lot larger of a student population is kind of a big change. What made you really choose Colgate? And was it maybe the campus or the academics or the people or just a specific program?
So as you guys are now juniors, you're going to start doing college visits, and I did the whole sweep. So I was a 4.0 A plus student my entire high school career. I got one B ever, and it was my ceramics class because one of my projects exploded in the kiln. But what are you going to do? I went to the Colgate campus, and I walked on there, and it was just a moment of like, oh, this is the place for me. It's up on a hill. It's middle of the woods. You're kind of isolated. The town of Hamilton, New York has like 3,000 people in it, which felt like home. The college doubled the size of the town. And as I was going through the tour, it's, hey, they have this, they have that, they have that. And I never grew up with anything. I used to drive 30 minutes to a different state to get groceries. So having walking distance from everything blew my mind, but it wasn't gray and painful like Cornell looked. We don't terribly like Cornell from Colgate, so you know how it goes.
And spoiler alert, you end up geology is your main focus, but when you first came to college, did you know that you wanted to focus in geology, or were you kind of open to all the different schools?
Absolutely not. And actually, geology wasn't my only degree, weirdly enough. I came in and my goal was to be a science major of some sort. Actually, I was looking into astronomy and astrophysics because this way I could tell everyone I was a rocket scientist, right? But I got into one astronomy class. I actually got into two, which when you're filling out college classes, you kind of request it. I got into two. So my advisor's like, hey, let's swap you out one. I know you didn't expect to get into both. Take this mega geology, which is planet-wide geology. So I took it and I'm like, whoa, this is cool. It's like how the world works. This is literally what I've always wanted to know. And then within 4 years, I was an isotope geochemist with a published paper. And I also got bored and said, "Oh, cool! I've always liked like ancient Greek stuff, right?" So I took an ancient Greek class, and they said, "If you take this class, we'll send you to Greece for a 3 week trip." I'm like, "Well, yeah, I'm gonna do that." They're like, "But try to take one more class." So I took another class, and they're like, "Well, you're already 2 classes in." I'm like, "I am. I should probably take another class." So I have a second major in classical studies with an emphasis on ancient Greek, and I used to sit and translate ancient Greek plays for homework every night.
You
Yeah.
know, kind of college isn't really kind of all about the labs and the lectures, and we know you also had a lot of fun on the intramural kind of sports side. Uh,
Victoria's Secret.
you
Best name ever.
you played kind of intramural softball at Colgate, right? What position did you play, and what other sports did you also play?
We played intramural everything. We had intramural football, soccer, bowling, basketball, softball. It was slow pitch softball. And there was one more I'm blanking on. We actually finished, we were the highest finishing team that was not a fraternity. We finished fourth in the overall standings my senior year, won 3 championships. I was the pitcher. In most sports I play, I'm the one who, if you mess it up, everything's going wrong. So I was the pitcher, I was the goalie, I was actually the quarterback on the football team, I was the center on the basketball team. I mean, in bowling, I was just the guy who bowled, but still.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned you weren't in a fraternity, or at least your team that you were a part of wasn't. So what was it like building that community at Colgate and being a part of all those different things, but not being specific to one fraternity?
Yeah, so the great thing about Colgate is you can't actually rush a frat your freshman year. So you get to know everybody first. And the first week, just like you guys do here, they have a kind of activities fair. So I went through and signed up for almost all of them. And then I actually attended about half of them. And I got really into about 5 of them. And through that, then my friends started to kind of get me into things. So what you'll find is if you friend, like I owed a friend a favor and they needed another guy for ballroom dancing. So they're like, "Hey, you owe me a favor. We need somebody for this week. Can you come help us out?" So I did. And then I kept going back. And then I kept getting better. And then it turned out I actually performed in one of Colgate's like greatest traditions is Dancefest. So twice a year, 1,000+ people out of this 3,000 person school like pack into our chapel and we just watch all the dance groups perform. And I was on the group, so I was doing ballroom. So that's actually how I met my wife. We were paired together for a ballroom dancing group.
That's pretty cool.
So I have a video of the first time we did that, and I kept doing it. So I ended up doing ballroom dancing, ballet dancing, hip hop dancing.
Wow.
Got into curling because the guy who ran my freshman seminar was into curling. I was the vice captain of our collegiate curling team as we went and competed at a curling rink down like 30 minutes down the road, like multiple days a week. Did all the intramural sports with people that were just on my floor. I was that really weird kid. It's like, man, I need some friends. So I'm like, what do people like? Oh, people love lollipops. So like, I just kept a bag of lollipops and candy. I'm like, "Hey, dude, you want a lollipop?" "Yeah." "Who are you?" "Oh, nice to meet you." Which I know sounds really weird, but neither of you surprised by that story.
One of the other like legendary traditions at Colgate is Geo Pizza. So we've heard kind of geology students at Colgate make geology themed pizzas as kind of a fun challenge. Can you kind of explain what a Geo Pizza is, and did you take part in it? And are there any kind of designs that you really vividly remember?
So when I was working with geology, I worked with isotopes, so with the things you can't see. I figured out how the continents smashed together. And a bunch of my friends were volcanologists, so like we went and climbed volcanoes. So the idea was we wanted a big pizza party, and it was you have to make the most geologically themed pizza. So mine was like continental accretion, like the island arc slapping into the side of the continent to form like Massachusetts. So that one was okay. One of my friends though made this awesome volcano pizza that you just stack the pepperonis up. You put a bunch of cheese in the middle, and as it melts, it just kind of oozes out and over, which I got to give him credit was one of the sickest things I've ever seen. But it's just one of those traditions where you take your thing in geology and you try to make a pizza out of it and just make it look cool, and then you just chow a bunch of pizza afterwards. Because what else are you gonna do? You're in college, right?
How'd they taste?
Well, some were meatier than others. If you got a bite of the volcano, like I hope you like pepperoni.
After Colgate, you made the leap to graduate school at the University of Akron. What led you to kind of Akron for your master's? And can you break down the goal of your master's thesis in kind of simple terms for us non-geologists? I mean, what kind of question were you trying to answer about Lake Tanganyika over the past 400 years? And kind of why was that question important to you?
That's an awesome question. So I took 2 years and went and worked as a full-time tutor. And my now wife at the time, girlfriend, went with me, and we made a deal. 2 years where I live, which was over there. 2 years where you live. She grew up in Newberry, Ohio, and went to Laurel. And then after that, we'll figure out where to go. What she didn't tell me is that once we moved here, we were never moving away. So we did our 2 years there. I realized I wanted to go back and get my grad degree. And so I just searched the entire state of Ohio. And when you're looking at grad degrees in science, you're not looking for an institution so much as you are looking for a person. So the guy I worked with came from Oregon State, and he was down in Akron for a couple of years. I was the only male grad student he ever had, and I'm still convinced it's because he needed me to unpack the lab. So he had a bunch of stuff that works. I didn't actually take a chemistry class after high school until grad school, which is really weird when you're doing geochemistry. Doesn't really make sense, but like I was a stable isotope geochemist that hadn't taken chemistry since sophomore year of high school. So when I got there, like most grad schools didn't actually want to even look at me because I was missing one of those key classes that they thought was necessary, minus the fact that like I took a class that was past that level. So doing that, he looked at it and said, no, like you obviously know what you're talking about. You wrote a paper on isotopes. So he's like, I got this project. We have these lake sediments from Africa, from Lake Tanganyika, which is one of the African Great Lakes. I want you to come look at it, do some chemistry on it. Would you be interested? And I said, well, yeah, that sounds amazing. Sadly, I didn't get to go to Africa, which would have been awesome. Instead, we had the policy where you went and got the samples for the next person. So I did a 3-week research cruise off the coast of Costa Rica, like getting deep sea sediments from an ocean floor event. But what was really cool is looking at the lake in Africa is as sediment builds up over time, you can see how it has changed. So the community there was applying for relief from climate change relief from the UN. And we needed to prove to them that either it was climate change or it was overfishing by them. So we looked at the concentration of these little things called diatoms, which are primary producers or photosynthesizers that live at the top of a lake. If the level of them was changing, then it was probably climate change. Whereas if they didn't change, but the fishing went down, like the amount of fish went down, it was probably overfishing. So what we did is we analyzed the silica content to figure out how many diatoms were there, and we scaled it over 400 years. But we had to deal with the fact that this lake backed up and like had a giant bloom of diatoms for a period of time and had to do some correction. It sounds really nerdy, and it so was, but it was so much fun because I'm just sitting there and you can't actually see any of the things you're working on. Although that is weirdly enough how I destroyed my sense of smell, because you had to get all of the like organic stuff off the diatom shells. So you had to boil it in a mixture of hydrochloric, oxalic, and sulfuric acids, which is great unless you leave the fume hood just a little bit too open. And one of my friends walked in and said, hey, what's that smell? And I looked at her and I said, what smell are you talking about? She's like, it smells like it's coming from that mixture you're boiling. I'm like, oh, I can't smell anything right now. And I slowly realized that I actually dissolved some of my ability to smell. So yay, science safety, right?
Still can't smell it.
No, it's like there's some smells I get. Like I can get cinnamon. Cinnamon's the main one.
Yeah.
Like subtle, like you know how some guys just really need, sometimes you just really need some deodorant. I can't tell. Like I can't. Like my wife yesterday told me like there's a chipmunk that died in our basement. I was like, I can't smell that. It's awesome.
Teaching middle school boys.
I would not be able to teach 7th graders if I could smell them. I guarantee you.
Every research project really has its challenges. What was one of the kind of hardest parts of working on that thesis? Obviously, you in every project you kind of hit dead ends and have experiments fail. So how do you kind of overcome things like that?
I messed up a decimal point and had to redo 6 months of work. So in doing my unit conversions, I accidentally dropped the, what was it? It was supposed to be million. I accidentally put it to centi. So it was a factor of 10, and the dissolution wasn't strong enough. It wasn't dissolving the things it was supposed to dissolve because the solution was a tenth of strong as it was supposed to be. So I took six months of work and redid it in about 90 days.
Wow.
Yeah. It was, man, I didn't realize I could science that fast. I guess like in the first 6 months, like you don't really know what you're doing anyway. And like you have to do the research, like you have to read all these background papers. I was working directly off of somebody else's doctoral thesis because she had made one argument and we looked at the data and said, I don't know, man, that doesn't quite look right. So she never actually published the exact methodology to make her mixtures. So I had to figure it out. And whoops.
Yeah.
Here we are now.
Kind of was teaching on your radar during grad school? I mean, some grad students kind of TA and discover that they love teaching, Others are kind of just purely focused on research. Did you have any teaching experience other than the tutoring kind of before the University of Akron?
Yeah, so I worked as a full-time tutor, and while I was working there, they needed another math teacher. And being a former mathlete went to that school, it's like, yeah, I'll teach Algebra 1, that's easy. And then the next year I got Geometry, Algebra 2, and Pre-Calc added to my load and taught an elective in Geology. Then I left to go do Geology. And while I was there, it wasn't a teaching, it was a research assistant and a teaching assistant job, assistantship that I had. So I actually got paid to go to grad school. Now, granted, it was like 10 grand, but it wasn't negative. Like I came out with no loans from that. Wow. It was great. So I taught I taught geology for engineers. I was teaching engineering students basic geology so that our bridges wouldn't fail, hopefully, and get buried. And I say this because like these engineers went to Akron and are still in the area and work around here. I know some of them do. I ran into one at CVCA as a coach a couple years ago. Actually, you played against him when he was a coach there, Charlie. So did a bunch of TAing and research stuff there. I did 150 person classes. I did 8 kid labs. I ran the whole gamut. And it was a fun experience. And coming out of college, I had 2 options. I could either go work as a teacher locally, or I actually had through my professor into a PhD program in Pittsburgh. I was going to work on the anthropogenic effects of nitrogen isotopes, which is just how humans messed up nitrogen isotopes and how you can see like human effects. 2 things stopped me from doing that. One, man, I really didn't like writing papers. I'm we got a lot of skills in life. Pay more attention to your English classes. It'll help you everywhere else because there's a lot of edits that need to happen when I write. But 2, my wife grew up in Newbury, was from here. I don't bring home the bacon in our family. She actually is the primary earner. And she wanted to be with her family and didn't want to move to Pittsburgh, which is only a 2-hour drive. But like I said, she never told me we were never leaving, but she knew it the whole time. Like we have a house here. We got a nice house that's 10 minutes from where her parents grew up in the same neighborhood as her brother and her sister. So looking at it, all right, US was a great option because her brother went to US. He graduated, I think it was 2005. He actually knows many of the teachers here still, which is, man, quite a loop. And actually I worked with Mrs. Osborne. Did you know Mrs. Osborne?
I don't think so.
You might have just missed her. So she taught my wife in 5th grade. And then with Dr. Brown, who I know you ran into Dr. Brown, her son and I played Pokemon together. So like it's just a weird Cleveland family connections all around.
That's really, really cool.
So 2016 rolls around, you're officially a teacher at US. What attracted you to US specifically? Was it, the all-boys environment, the school's reputation, or something about the science program? Like what brought you here?
Looking at schools all around. So I worked at a school and it was a school that didn't have great resources, had a great community program and was very into nature, but really needed help and didn't have the academic rigor. I teach stuff to my middle schoolers here that like I used to teach to high schoolers. Like the kids here, they're good, they're smart, they work. I mean, you guys are examples of that. So doing that, looking at US, it's like, this is a school that has a lot of great kids. These kids are going to go do something. And more importantly, they want to learn. On top of that, I have the resources to teach them what they need to know. I'm not going to be worried about, can I actually show these kids what these rocks look like if they want to go out? Are they actually not going to be able to work with these force ramps? No, we had all the resources necessary. So looking through and having the family experience that went with it from my brother-in-law, like the words I heard were just amazing. And the school lived up. I've always said, like, if I ever leave US, it's because I quit teaching. It's not good. There's no point in going to teach anywhere else. You're not going to find a better environment.
Yeah. Well, that's powerful. But do you recall your first day or week in the classroom at US? I'm sure you're still adjusting to that. Do you have any funny new teacher moments?
So here, let me give you one from my interview. I was talking with Dr. Brown, and they're like, so why do you want to teach middle school boys? And I looked at him like, well, I'm just a really big middle school boy. It's true though, isn't it?
I mean, yeah.
No, I still remember the first day, seeing my name on the plaque. It was great. I still remember the first group of kids I taught. I still remember the first kid in the first class that walked in and being like, oh man, I'm so in over my head. Middle schoolers are so weird. They're so small. I taught high school. I had worked with college kids. Man, 12, 13-year-olds, they're something. But no, my favorite every year is probably the Archimedes density lab, where we take the students and we measure their density by putting them in a tank full of water, which is usually very cold,
Yeah.
makes for the best pictures, and measuring the volume and just working through the science process of that. But there are kids every year that you just look at and go, wow. I like, we don't want to give ours in demerits, but of course I have a favorite one. Like I was teaching nuclear forces and eighth grader stands up as soon as I mention the strong force, just goes, strong force, whoo, and flexes in the middle of class. It's like, I have to give you a demerit, but that was hilarious.
Middle school boys, as you kind of said, are like really known just for their energy and kind of curiosity and sometimes short attention spans. Kind of, what do you kind of enjoy most about teaching middle schoolers, and how do you kind of tap into that energy sometimes in a positive way?
Oh, they're just into everything. Like I can just find anything and be like, hey, let's do this. And minus 5 minutes of moaning and groaning because, puberty, right? But they're like, all right, cool, let's give it a try. They're not too cool for school, which is great. When you teach high schoolers, they've already decided I'm not a science kid. There is no such thing in seventh grade. You're not a science. There is no I'm a science kid or not a science kid. It's this looks interesting. Let's check it out. And when you can work with middle schoolers, if you can put things in their hands, like in a rocket lab when they launch things, the ideas that kids come up with are amazing. Like it's totally not how I think. Well, mostly. But the ideas they come up with are completely unexpected. And the way they approach problems is amazing. So you take this kind of like new ingenuity and see how they apply it to a problem that you've seen 100 times, and it gives you a whole different outlook on the world.
You mentioned that Archimedes lab. Are there any other experiments or labs that you do with the kids that you really enjoy?
Almost all of them. Sadly, I had to actually cut some out as the curriculum's changed over the years, but the couple big ones, it's the very second day of class, I make the kids try to make an egg sink, float, and hover in water, which is fun, and it's all about density. And I know you remember that. I could see it. Although I think were you virtual that time?
I was.
Oh, that was
virtual,
terrible.
So I did online. I still remember that.
The rocket lab is probably the big one. So we take these little 30 millimeter film capsules, spray like isopropyl or ethanol in them, and try to see how you can launch them across the room. But really, it's an independent research project of determining your independent variable to make it fly further and writing a report to say like, no, I'm right. Changing the fuel is what matters. If you can make it a competition, they're into everything. But probably the thing that gives me the best stuff to look at is the geologic timescales. Everybody has to take geologic time, which is 4.5 billion years, and your mind can't comprehend that, and try to make it relevant to something that is in your life. So like Aaron Moss made a baseball field and said, oh, if this event happened 2/3 of Earth's history ago, it's 2/3 down the baseball field. Wow, look how close everything is. There's a football field. Do you remember what you did?
I don't. I remember doing the project.
Uh-huh. I'm gonna let you sit on it. I bet it'll come back to you, and if not, it's gonna eat at you.
Yeah, it will.
Look at it. He's so torn up about it now. I've had people like build things and like pour resin into it. I've had people make some of the worst music videos of all time. It's great because it allows like the kids to own it, but really they're all getting the same thing from a different approach.
Yeah. Well, I remember when I shadowed, it was your class and you guys were shooting. It was the rocket lab. Yeah. And I was just like, these kids like shooting things. I'm like, this is sweet. Like
Right?
that might have been the selling point. It was pretty cool.
I think you were there on the day we were all in formal dress too, weren't you?
I don't know.
I think you were.
That whole day was a blur. I remember like my shadow, couple people I met. The rest was just all a blur. But
That's fair. It's really gonna eat you up, isn't it?
Basketball court, and if it wasn't, it was around the world, and I think it was different places around the world, like the diameter of the
Circumference, but
the
yeah, it was the circumference. Of
It
the
was.
globe.
It was the circumference of the world.
Because you
and
thought about doing the circumference of a basketball, and then you started to do it, and you were really
it
bored.
was really, it was really bad. So then I decided to do
You took a string and you taped it around the whole thing, and you flagged it with little sticky notes.
Yeah, I still remember that. That was really, really fun. Yeah, that was really, really cool.
I knew you'd get there.
Kind of beyond the classroom, one of the things I also kind of got to experience in middle school is you coaching, right? So, what kind of sports or teams have you been involved with as a coach at the middle school, and how has that experience really kind of shaped you?
So every year I've been here, I've coached soccer. I started as our B soccer coach, and just these last 2 years, I am now one of our A soccer coaches, along with Mrs. Hamburg. I also actually used to be our A lacrosse coach as well. What I realized very quickly is that it takes a lot of time after school. And when I started, when I had my first child, my daughter is now 7. So 7 years ago, if I was coaching, I was gone 2/3 of the year until about 7, 8 o'clock at night. And it was rough. So eventually we had to drop lacrosse, even though that was my main sport and the sport I loved the most. But what it is it's great because it lets you actually connect with the kids in a different way. I built relationships. I don't teach every seventh grader, sadly. So like there are seventh graders that I only know through soccer, but we have great relationships because we'd see each other out in the field. We'd go run around, we'd play around. It's a lot of fun, but it's a whole different type of learning. It's a lot of character building, a lot of person building, and a lot of team building, which is really nice. And those relationships that you build on the field, you don't ever build them in the classroom the same way. I know both of you guys are athletes. I still remember teaching you how to play goalie with some level of success.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a completely different way you see each other. And like, I never saw you like that until you were out on the field. And we never interacted in those same ways. And sadly, I never got to teach you or to coach you, but I always thought it would be fun. But like, you've seen it with your baseball. You approach the world in a different way. Also, it's really fun to really annoy some kids when you start talking about the physics of the flight of the soccer ball and the Bernoulli effect. And they do not enjoy the Bernoulli effect when you're talking about hitting a free kick in soccer.
Well, another one of your big roles beyond teaching and coaching, I don't know what the official title is, but it's basically the head of the house system for the Shaker campus.
You nailed it.
Yeah. So, well, can you explain what the house system is at US, maybe specifically for the Shaker campus and how it works?
Oh, it is probably my favorite part about US. So much like Harry Potter, we're all given houses. Much less fun sorting. I would love to make a hat that just told you where to go, but that's sadly not in my wheelhouse. So with the house system, it's a way to build community, and community is a big driver for me. Like having connections, having fun, seeing each other in different ways, and making friends. Because you guys are brothers. You're going to be here for the rest of your life. Once you leave this school, it's always going to be part of you. My brother-in-law was in McKinley. I know this. He hasn't been here since 2005. My nephew, his son, is now in McKinley. It's a family tradition. It's a legacy. It means something. So we take this, and throughout the year, we hold a bunch of competitions. So you guys have your upper school house cup. We have our lower school house cup. The main overlap, of course, is Founders Day, which was a great event. What was that, 4 weeks ago now? Wow, that's been a long fall. So we have 4 house assemblies throughout the year. Our first one actually is tomorrow, right before our big event in the pep rally. And we celebrate everything to do with the school. We celebrate achievements both individually and collectively. One of my goals, since I was one of the people that took over, so technically it's a co-head of house because there are 2 other people that do it with me, Mrs. Bailey and Mrs. Gazowski, who are both lower school and middle school respectively. One of our goals is to celebrate the achievements of everybody and what they do both in school and out of school. So we got kids that win the spelling bee, win the GOB, and they earn their team house points. We have kids like Matthew Cheggy, who wrote a book, and it's published on our US social media feeds. And if you are important enough, and if you're doing something amazing enough that our school wants to show what you are doing to the world, you should earn some points for your house. One of our goals has been to up the amount of participation in the house system and up the amount of points that you can get throughout the year. So last year, our winning team had, I believe it was 1,400 points. From Founders Day, the winning team scores 100 points, 90, 80, 70, all the way down for the lower school. Then we have lower school Founders Day, and we're trying to get all the little kids, all the medium kids to interact, to build that community. We had one student last year in Hawley who raised us from 9th place all the way up to 3rd. We weren't last, we'll take it. But all the way up to 3rd, and he became somewhat of a local legend because his work in math counts, his work in the GCC-TM math competitions, his work on his junior fellows project was lifting the whole house, and it inspired other people like, oh, look what he's doing. Maybe I can get myself more involved in the community and I can help my house too. Plus, my son, he's now in kindergarten. He's 5 years old. Every day, every Friday, he's like, we get to wear our purple shirts. We're going to win this year. How can I help? I can try to do the puzzle of the week. He can barely read. He's still going to try to do it. And it's all about getting engagement. And it's expanding the boundaries of all these kids and to expand the community as a whole.
That's pretty cool.
You know, as head house, you work with a lot of kind of student leaders like house captains or kind of prefects. What's it like kind of mentoring those students as they plan those like, kind of assemblies and motivate their houses? And how do you kind of guide them to really getting their house amped?
I currently have 10 pumpkins sitting in the back of my classroom, and I'm very excited to see what actually happens with it. So it's an experience because it's a lot of trial and failure. So they're planning a house assembly and they want to open up some pumpkins to reveal the house shirts. Great concept. They are now learning what is involved in getting that to happen. They are going to carve some pumpkins, scoop out the guts, bring it to our um, compost pile out in the arboretum, get house shirts, stuff them in there, realize they're going to have to wash them afterwards, which is going to be a fun moment for them, and then reveal it live on stage. The amount of effort, it's really helping them to learn what it takes to be a leader in our community. So part of that means I have to sit back and let them take the reins sometimes. But it also means that we have to give a lot of guidance. So there's so many great ideas, but they're working with an audience that ranges in age from 5 to 14. And that is a tough age range to meet. So to give ideas, to give suggestions, to give guidance without ever actually telling them what to do, letting them take the ownership. They design almost every house competition that we run with some suggestions and a little bit of help because they want to participate too. But really it's setting them in a place to say, how can I step forward and show my house what I'm doing? And then it's encouraging them at house lunch, sitting with not just your friends, but sitting with the other kids, the younger kids. Going down, we take a little bit of time out of class. We had Gershon Panu, our Good Willie house captain, came down and presented the lower school Founders Day Cup to Good Willie after they won it this year. And he had to come out of class and he had the responsibility of making it up, but came down, helped throw the ribbons on the trophy of Good Willie House, brought it in as it got announced, stood in the middle of there, raised it up, brought all the Good Willie kids with him, let them all touch the trophy. The little things that build the memories that those younger guys are going to remember forever, and realizing that those memories that our current house captains have came from other people that did this. So how can they help generate those?
Yeah. And now switching gears here to your family, you made the decision this year to enroll your son at US, which congratulations. That's a big decision and move. How is it now that your son has been with you at school?
I suddenly have so many more reasons that I need to go talk to lower school teachers because every time I do, he walks by and gives me a hug. And it's the greatest moment ever. We thought about bringing him last year, but he is very young for the grade. He's an August birthday. So he was at junior K, but at Laurel School last year where my daughter is. He was so excited to come here. We were very nervous because we had to get him to like it before he came here. So we brought him in a couple times like, look, this is going to be your future school. Now he's there every day and I can see him eating lunch. And every time I walk by, I have to say it actually has helped me a lot because I never had a reason to connect a huge amount with the lower school. Being there and walking in and like seeing their assemblies, I can see the enthusiasm he has. He tells me about his friends and what they talk about. And it makes it much easier for me to connect what we're doing up in the middle school and the house stuff to the lower school kids. So my nephew is actually also in junior K as well. And we got the junior K to come up and do a freeze dance with some of our senior prefects on their lower school Founders Day. It was very entertaining seeing Griff up there. I know he was one of your guests a couple of weeks ago. Seeing him up there trying to do a freeze dance with a bunch of kids that probably go to his knees, right? But to see that moment of all those guys together and to get to experience it myself is something that I never dreamed I'd be able to do. After all, he was born COVID.
Yeah.
Like that's
crazy.
It's not been 5 years, has it?
Doesn't seem like it. Well, we've also heard that you're a big Pokemon fan, which is
biggest nerd in the world.
But it's cool. I mean, it's unique to you. And how did your love of Pokemon begin?
So I was born in 1990. Pokemon was released in 1995 officially, and the anime came to US airwaves in the late 90s. So I think 96 to 98 area. That is the time when I was, like 6 to 8 years old. I still remember every Saturday morning, and we're going to get, spoiler, we'll get to the why at the end, right? This is going to come back, by the way. I still remember the theme song every Saturday morning going, I want to be the very best, right? Dude, that was like formulative for my life. Drew a lot of interest. Eventually it faded out. I still remember the first Pokemon card I got. Went to high school. It wasn't cool anymore. Went to college. When you go to college, everything is cool again because you're going to find somebody else interested. I grew up in the time like before the internet was everywhere. So I hit internet like high school time. So I started finding people like, dude, Pokemon's awesome. I'm like, it really is. So I went back to a store, bought my first pack again. And my friend's like, I'll play with you because he plays Magic the Gathering. So like, great, he'll play a card game with me. So I started playing it. And that's when streaming started to become slightly bigger. So I started watching a couple streams. Then I realized like, oh, I love board games. And it's just a big board game that changes as you go. So I started playing it a bit. Then I started going to a local league. And then I started going to some like tournaments and some competitions. Really, it took off when I hit Ohio because Ohio is one of the Pokemon hotbeds of the United States.
Didn't know that.
I know we actually have a former world's top 10 finisher down in Akron, a whole bunch of regional level tournament winners that are throughout the state. So then I started going to bigger tournaments. I went to North American International Championships. Like I finished 76th that year, and I keep missing out on the money by like the tiniest things. It's so frustrating. Went to a bunch of tournaments, started going to a league consistently, then got asked if I could take it over. So I took over the league, became, and I kid you not, this is a thing, a certified Pokemon professor. So you have to work through the Pokemon company. You apply, you have to take tests and everything, but it's effectively a teacher of Pokemon. And besides getting some really cool swag, got a nice shirt and hat to go with it. I used to run events, used to run leagues. Unfortunately, I moved slightly further away when my kids were born. So there's not one right near me where I am, but I still try to attend tournaments when I can. I was supposed to go to Pittsburgh for a regional tournament a couple weeks ago, but man, between soccer and the fall, I was just exhausted. So I'm trying to find a couple more I can go to a little bit later this year. I'm sneakily trying to get my kids into it.
I was going to say,
Officially, if my wife listens to this, of course I am not. I'm letting them choose their own adventure as they go. But there might be a few Pokemon plushies around. I actually build a lot of decks for kids. So like Miss Arnu, her daughter has a Pokemon deck I built for her because she got into it for a little bit. The Pierces, I have given them some Pokemon decks. Dragar, her and I have talked Pokemon. A new Pokemon game released, today. So I will likely be playing that when I get home. But once it's a part of your life, there's really no reason to get rid of it. It's something that is a good influence. It's much like sports. I still follow all those sports leagues very closely. It's just one more thing that's a little bit easier to keep up with, minus the ever-changing meta of the game.
Looking at kind of the overall view, you've been teaching at US for nearly 10 years now. How do you think you've kind of changed or grown as a teacher kind of since that first year back in 2016?
I've learned how to teach. So unlike many of your teachers, US does a great job of bringing both people who are trained as teachers and trained in the industry. So I was one that came as, like, I think it's 4 or 5 published geology papers. I'm one of like 20 people who do isotope geochemistry did isotope geochemistry of marbles up in Canada. Like, there's only like 5 of us that do, and I know all of them. So when I came here, I taught high school kids, I'd worked with college kids. The one thing I hadn't done is actually teach middle school boys. So I know the expectations, I know what to do, but there's little subtle things that you just learn as you go. And I try to surround myself with people that are, like, in my opinion, amazing teachers and better teachers than I am. But that's because I'm always trying to improve. And I just try to pick up little tips and tricks like that, like how to get the attention of a group of 20, 12-year-olds, how to get a hook at the beginning of a lesson. Like, that's something that very basic teaching 101 that I didn't really know when I first started teaching. Like, you got to get their attention, of course. But I was also the kind of student that I just wanted to learn everything. So the fact that like somebody didn't want to learn something was like very strange to me the first time I taught a class. Like, what do you mean you don't want to know? What do you mean you don't want to like just try it? Okay, so let's make the connection. So that's turned into my class now having those like sidebar connections. So when we did geology, we talk about Marilyn Monroe. We talk about the monopoly of diamonds that De Beers had forever. And that class does more to hook people into minerals than anything else I did. Or we'll flash a bunch of gems and jewelry, right? We'll talk about the diamond tester TikToks that you always see. It's like, well, how do these work? Well, let's talk about the electrons transferring around carbon, right? So it's all the small little details. Like, ultimately, the classes are mostly the same, but now I know how to make kids interested in the things I like. Yay, rocks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're obviously still in your time here teaching, but you've already influenced so many students here. When you look ahead as to what your legacy might be when you do retire, end up leaving here, what do you hope that will be?
I hope that one kid remembers one thing they learned in my class. If I've done that, I've done something successful. The one sad part about teaching is, hey, like, sure, there's a legacy, but you'll forget about me after I've been gone. Everybody will. You guys will go away and you'll learn all these cool things. And if you remember just one thing that you did with me, one class, one moment, one time on the field, one podcast session, one weird picture I showed you before the podcast session about what I looked like when I was in college and high school, those moments mean that we've made a connection. And if you can connect with the people around you, you can truly change the world. So if you want to change the world, it starts with one person. And the whole point of getting into teaching for me was if I really want to change the world, I got to connect with one person first. And once I've connected with one person, I got to connect with the next person. So if I can connect with one person, I've done my job. So after I leave, after I retire, when I'm old and gray, which it's not for a while, it's a little gray, but otherwise not for a while, hopefully one person remembers one thing from my class. And if I did that, then hopefully somebody else does. And maybe somebody wants to go check out geology, or maybe somebody takes a geology class, or maybe like on my way in, like one kid talks to a Colgate rep to maybe consider going there, right? Just little things like that. Maybe just seeing the world in a slightly different way. And if not, we tried. But as long as somebody thinks about it one time, I think I've won.
Well, I have a fun question for you here. If you could go on a dream geology trip, where would you go? Unlimited funds and unlimited time.
So does it have to be someplace I haven't been already?
No.
Okay. So geology, one of the reasons I got into it is also because I have now been to 10 different countries. I didn't have a passport until college, and I went to 9 countries within 2.5 years. And most of it was for geology. My goal is I want to see all of the active lava lakes in the world. I've seen one in Villarrica in Chile, which was awesome. I've never been to Hawaii. I really want to go there. There's one there's 2 in Africa. I believe Niragongo has one. Mount Erebus in Antarctica. I have one friend who has done field work, and actually 2 friends who've done field work in Antarctica, and they're amazing. And I would love to go see that. But also Iceland, because that's one of the other places. And Iceland's just one of those places you can see the northern lights and a lava lake at the same time. And
Doesn't get much better than
it
that.
doesn't.
Finally, this is a question we like to ask all of our guests. What is your why? In other words, kind of what really wakes you up each morning, makes you want to come to school, and what is kind of the core purpose or driving reason that really motivates you to teach, to coach, to mentor, to do everything you do?
So do you remember earlier when I said the theme song, I want to be the very best like no one ever was? So I just want to be better every day, no matter what I do. And that sounds really weird and vague, but that means every time like I go out in the field and coach soccer, I'm trying to do it a little bit better than the day before. Because if you're not getting better, in my opinion, you're getting worse. Like there is no staying still. Either you're improving or the rest of the world's catching up to you. So every morning when I wake up, it's just how can I do it a little bit better than yesterday? Or how can I do it better than the last time I did this? And that's impressive because I really am not a morning person. My sleep schedule is not one I would ever recommend to anybody, but it involves like most of my thesis in college was written after 8 p.m. and before 4 a.m. So every morning when I get up, I get myself there. It's like, all right, let's drink some water. Let's get going. And when you step in front of a group of people, for some reason, I'm very able to just kind of like code shift and be like, all right, great. We're at this moment now. How can I do a little better? How can I be better than I was yesterday? What can I learn today that I didn't know yesterday? What can I change today that I couldn't change yesterday? So I want to be the very best, like nobody ever was.
Well, Mr. Montanye, it's been great having you on the show today. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your thoughts, experiences, and just stories with us. And to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. And we hope you will join us next Wednesday for the next episode of Late Start Show.
Pleasure's all mine,
Thank you,
guys.
Mr.
Thank you
Montanye.
again.